triple ghosted. I'm gonna kill this guy before the end of the map. You just wait. And he's gonna drop like 12 scarabs. Oh, ice prison. Ice prison. Oh, look at that. The magic. Oh, ice prison's gone. Fuck. Ice prison. Ice prison me! Oh, this prison. Oh my god! Not cheating. I told you, I built the strat around it. Ice prison. Infinite exponential damage increase. And probably like... Hey, what's up everyone? It's Slew. Welcome. You might be wondering, what the heck did I just witness on the front end of that video? Well, that was a little showcase of a great many things that I'm doing. Different tech combinations, very peculiar gear that I'm wearing. I'm going to be talking about that and how it's enabling me to break into some of the harder tier 17 farms, which, yeah, that's evidently the end game farming. There's different strategies there at play. What you witnessed in that particular video was a meat sacks all flame, back to basics, kind of all-in scarab farm, and you got to see, you know, massive scarabs drop from that enemy. It's been quite lucrative, but not until I stopped bricking maps. Partially bricking maps, I was able to really go all out and actually kill those monsters quickly, as you got to see in the video. So I'm going to be talking about how I'm doing with that. I'm going to showcase a little bit of the gear, explaining different things that I'm doing and how I'm putting the gear together and why I'm choosing some of these really, really weird items, especially how they work together. So you saw me in the video right up front mention Ice Prison. So this is a little bit of a side point. Doesn't have anything to do with the gear I'm wearing. But since we're not playing Tornado Shot, we don't get shotgunning effects from our projectiles. That's one of the major downsides to skills like Lightning Arrow and or Elemental Hit of the Spectrum, which is what I'm using. However, you can shotgun in the weird case of stealing the Ice Prison Headhunter buff, or even I think if the monster casts it itself. These extraordinarily high health meat sacks just absolutely melt at the sight of that spawn, and then if I have a bunch of Headhunter buffs already, I'm firing a huge amount of projectiles in all sorts of different directions. You got to see the enormous AoE effect of Elemental Hit, and that monster took every single one of those projectiles, not one, but somewhere around 30 hits at once, even though usually it will only be one. A little bit of a side point here, Nimis helps you get a few extra projectile hits, but nothing like what you just saw in that video. And so even some of these monsters that have insane Nemesis mods, it had something like 10 Nemesis mods, it was even double ghosted, I think it had extra life, it had regen, it had reduced crit damage taken. In some cases, these monsters are virtually unkillable for my build, but not in the case that I can squeeze out an Ice Prison stolen buff, which you might think is really super niche, but not actually that much, because when you have 60 or 70 Headhunter buffs, that's probably one of the buffs you're going to have, and you can kind of line things up to work out that way. So just a side point, for those of you who might be struggling, try that out. You might notice that your damage goes through the roof in those moments. So again, a little bit of a side point, doesn't really pertain to the exact gear setup I'm wearing, but just wanted to get that out of the way. You might have also noticed that I had Rage in the video. Why do I have Rage? Well, I've been running a Warlord's Mark Mana Forge 6-link setup, but actually I'm not wearing that anymore. I'm devoting it more to pure damage. I tried Detonate Dead and Desecrate in there. It didn't actually do that much damage. I tried full-blown Mana Forge 6-link setup. Currently, and this was not in the video, but I've gone all the way back to our roots with a very basic Artillery 6-link. I mean, it just does more single-target damage than anything. And it does synergize very well with the gloves I'm wearing, which we'll get into in just a second. But the Rage is coming from Ravenous Passion. It's a new helmet, relatively new helmet, I think. And it gives you Rage when you spend mana. Now, usually, I have this helmet give me less mana cost of skills. Well, I don't need that, obviously, because I want to have higher mana. I give myself a little bit higher reservation pool, 119 mana in this case. Usually I have around like 70 or 80. And the mana cost of my skill is a little higher than normal, around 24. And you might think, well, you know, that would probably produce some Rage fairly often. You can kind of see that I do get the Rage. Oh, maybe if I give myself some mana here. I get some rage sometimes, not enough of them, but in the video, I got huge amounts of rage because I was attacking very, very quickly, of course. Stealing so many different headhunter buffs, being in combat, getting onslaught, you get a lot more attack speed with that, and you get, of course, all the leech, the mana leech that comes with it. So this ends up giving me a huge amount of rage, somewhere in the neighborhood of like what Calm Spirit used to give, a 10 to 20 rage per second, you know, really an enormous number. And so I've been willing to justify completely removing the helmet slot, which was kind of dedicated to mana reservation efficiency to squeeze in an extra aura anyway. I dropped Anger. This enabled me to fit this in. I mean, Anger is not really doing a whole lot for my build currently anyway, and I don't even technically need this Corruption. There are other things I could do to work around it. But this is the setup that I'm currently using, and it's allowed me to get Berserk, which gives me more multiplier to attack speed, movement speed, and less damage taken. Yes, even with the conversion of attack speed and attack damage to cast speed and cast or spell damage, that only applies to the rage. That doesn't apply to Berserk. You still get the rage. You still get the movement speed from the rage, by the way. And then you get, it's really just an enabler for Berserk, high uptime Berserk. And that has really helped get me into breaking into tier 17s efficiently, both on the offensive and defensive front. Combining this with these gloves, especially in meat sack farming, has been especially potent. I was wearing these gloves before the helmet anyway, but terrific combination here with the gloves and the helmet, because the gloves will essentially guarantee me 55 stacks of Soul Eater. That's 5% attack speed per stack, and that is what's going to enable the rage accumulation to just go through absolutely through the roof, as you saw in the front end of the video. This particular choice of gear has profound ramifications on all fronts. Even when I steal the Soul Eater buff, it's not 45, it's 55, and that's an extra 50% increased attack speed that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So whether I've stolen Soul Eater or not, this helps tremendously. It obviously helps win the pre-ramp up stage, because, you know, I'll be firing arrows into these meat sack enemies, trying to kill them very slowly. I'll ramp up to 55 Soul Eater buffs anyway, and it's just worked out extremely well. Combining these gloves with this 6-link is ridiculously strong. With the focus ballista, artillery ballista setup, you already know this 6-link is very strong by itself. When you combine it with 55 Soul Eater buffs reliably, it's crazy how much extra damage. That was not actually displayed in the video, and something that I've changed since making that little highlight. I just wanted to point that out. Adding Nimis was a huge boon to the damage. I've forgotten or didn't realize that Nimis actually somehow double dips the return projectiles. You don't have to go pierce. You can just go ricochet, chain, or fork, and it will actually hit the enemy twice, even though it doesn't really go through it and come back the way Vengeance Cascade used to work back in Crucible League. So I had forgotten that Nimis is sort of broken in a positive way in that sense. And also, not just for Nimis, but if you have return projectiles, I remember with Val Lightning Strike I used to play, if you stand inside the hitbox of the enemy, and if the enemy has a bigger than normal hitbox, like a meat sack rare, well, they take all the projectiles. You're essentially kind of breaking the rule and getting effectively shotgunning effect on the return projectiles anyway. And so that adds a lot more damage than just what you might think is, well, it's probably double damage. But no, it's not double damage. It's like 5 or 6 times more damage in a practical sense if you do good positioning on your part. And you get to take advantage of far shot while standing right on top of an enemy, because it, you know, goes back and forth if you want to. I'm not, but you can if you want. So Nimis, with these gloves, this helmet, this 6-link, crazy off the chart extra damage. I mean, we're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 or 9 times more damage than I was doing before I had this setup. And I mean, I was really banging my head against the wall prior to changing all of these pieces. Now, we also have this cool little chest. This chest doesn't exactly synergize with everything else particularly, but it is an extraordinarily cheap chest that works really well if you have Supreme Ostentation. Now, there are probably better options out there, but for roughly 1 or 2 divines, you can get a really nice synth combination here. That's like kind of like mine. And then you also get divinity as a buff. Now, this is about a 50% uptime. There seems to be an internal cooldown of about 1 second on the divine charge on a hit. But the divinity buff gives you 50% more elemental damage done, as well as 20% less elemental damage taken, and immunity to curses. The chest also grants you crit immunity to nearby enemies, which for meat sacks, you know, that's going to be all of them. Huge boost there. Doesn't have energy shield. That really sucks. Can't make huge use of the... Or sorry, it doesn't have evasion is what I meant to say. It does have energy shield. I can't really make good use of the energy shield. But anyway, try this chest out if you want extremely good 1 or 2 divine option here. You can get at least 1 very good synth implicit. You might have to look them up on PoEDB. But I'm actually not even making usage of the power charge on crit here because I have Storm Rider cluster, but I could take it out if I want. But anyway, really like this chest. There are other great chest options. I was using Hiri's Ire, which is fine. But yeah, great option if you're using Supreme Ostentation. Now, I still got the usual Headhunter. I got Goldworm, got Aventors, got Bow and Quiver for Elemental. The only other kind of oddball here is Yoke of Suffering. Well, in the case of Elemental Hood of the Spectrum combined with Secret Suffering, I now do Brittle, Sap, and Scorch. And then with Skitterbots, I still Chill and Shock. So that's 5. And then at least with, if I'm not mistaken, Artillery Ballista, which... Okay, no, sorry, with some setups, I guess not with this setup currently, but certain setups, if you are doing some kind of damage that at least is in part physical, which I guess technically my current setup, I'm not doing that. If you do have that, then you can take advantage of these two, which are new tattoos, and get even an additional 20% damage taken on enemies. So I currently am not taking advantage of that. I have 50. I'm getting 50% value, or 50% increased damage taken currently by enemies, but you can get up to 70% with this setup. It's really cool with Yoke of Suffering. I'm not sure I'm going to do a simplex this league or not. That is really strong. Obviously, I like the resistances as well, and it can be double corrupted, which the simplex cannot. I don't know. We'll see. Currently riding on, I believe, 40%, 149% respectively, quant and rarity. Gear, I like the Horn Scarab glittering anyway. So I'm not terribly worried. It's a hybrid MF setup. It's really helping me get into T17. Juicing, just going to have to steer away from the mindset of all-in MF bows. You're not going to succeed breaking into tier 17s with that mentality. You might try different gear setups, different builds entirely. It's not necessarily bow. It's not necessarily a bow league, this league, for sure. But just sharing some of the things I'm doing that are really helping me break into this harder meta side. I will be coming out with some videos featuring a farm with maps like this, which I'll have a huge number of more scarab multipliers. It takes a long time to roll these maps, but very, very lucrative when you start stacking up meat sacks on the map. I would recommend you, kind of ease into it. Only 1 meat sack per map to get started if you're going to try this farm, but you can see what I'm doing on Twitch in the next few days. You're going to see me doing an official farming video on this, which will be released to YouTube in a later date. That's it for me for now. If you have any questions, let me know. I know this is a very strange combination of gear. So I know there are a lot of questions out there, but I'm trying to explain some of the things I'm doing. It's really especially love the combination of this helmet and these gloves, especially, and with the 6-link. Wow, that's so much damage that you don't normally have. And it even works for bossing, crazy enough. It's actually a bossing setup, for that's kind of what you need for these particular back to basics meat sack farm. That's it for now. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.